Thanks for this presentation. Thank you very much to the University of Cape Town and to Jameel to welcome us in such a wonderful condition and to organize this exciting seminar. The first panel was very good. Bruno, we should try, but we're not sure we'll succeed. But so back from Kenya to France. Have you understood? I'm the policymaker in the couple, and I will translate civic service. It's quite easy. It's service civic. Okay. So that was the first point. But definitely we'll go to the youth situation. We'll discuss about the situation of a country where there is a tremendous level of expenditures of social benefits, but where we have to implement new programs, which is quite different from countries where there are almost nothing or very few of social expenditures and programs, and they have to implement. But we'll see that we cross the same interrogations, and I think it's quite interesting to see how we have the same exigence for evidence actually to change it. So in France we have a very comprehensive social protection system. We have a universal health insurance, which is totally free for people who are under the poverty threshold, who is taken in charge by insurance for the rest of the population, which cover almost every expenses. We have a minimum income for people without work, people who are at the end of the employment insurance. We have a minimum income from retirees. We have general minimum income, which is quite which exists from 20 years now. We have family allowances, quite generous. We have a pension system. In addition to that, we have a large range of public services, and especially for young people, education is compulsory and free, and university is free for almost every school or universities. And among the result of that is a very high level of social expenditure, because we dedicate 1/3 of our wealth to social expenditures. But in spite of that, we still have a quite high level of unemployment, 9% of the active population, and we have 11% of the population living under the poverty. And more, the figures about poverty were decreasing for 40 years after the war, and during the 10 past year, poverty doesn't decrease. And it's linked with what we'll see on youth policies. And we have increasing deficits and increasing social expenditures and such a pressure on our country to reduce debts and deficits. The youth situation is as follows. There is a very high level of unemployment in the youth population, which is higher than the unemployment in the general population. Those who work many often have very precarious jobs. They work for 6 months and then they have to quit and then they find another, and it takes 5 or 6 years to have a stable job with a long-term contract. And as you remember from the last one, 11% of the population under poverty threshold, 20% among the youth. So it's higher. And it explains a very pessimistic feeling among the youth about its future, which is quite rational. These difficulties are even worse for young people living in the suburbs, and worse than worse for people from foreign origin living in the suburbs. And around 15% of the young population has no diploma, and more difficulties to have access to it. Actually, in spite of that, young people are not very present in the political debate until recently. And each time a party organizes this program to run for elections, he forgot young people. At the end, he says, well, we should create a new allowance for young people. And that's a thing he puts in the program at the last minute, and nobody applies anything. Once we are an aging country, like many European countries, my proposals, which makes a scandal in a TV show, I propose that young people should have 5 voices to every election when they're between 20 and 30, and then you give 4 voices between 30 and 40, and then 3, 2, 1. And it could maybe increase the place of young people in the program. It's not a joke. Policies are difficult to implement because there are shared responsibilities between the government and the different level of local authorities. And it's very interesting because to take care of young people is a cost for those who will take care, even the municipalities or the region or the country. But they have no direct benefit to succeed in the policies for young. It's not the same thing with, for instance, unemployment. People who are unemployed have a cost because they have their unemployment insurance. So you have a direct interest to put them back to work. It's not the case for young people, and I think it explains something. Among the young people, there is a big demand for autonomy. Autonomy towards their parents, towards the government, and so on, and to have the means of their autonomy. And when we start the point, we have already 50 billion euros of public expenses for the youth, so in education, family allowance, tax credit, and so on. The youth came to the governmental agenda in 2009 for different reasons. The first reason was what happened in Greece. It was before the Euro crisis. There was a youth crisis in Greece with some riots, and the government, the French government, was afraid, saying it could happen in France. The second reason was strikes in the high schools because they wanted to reform the high schools and lots of strikes. And it was interesting because I was in the government for 2 years and I tried to push the issue of youth without any success, but the government was afraid. We put youth at the agenda. And I was in charge to try to define a policy, and for that I put a commission with all the stakeholders to try to find a solution on which we converge. All the stakeholders, it means almost like that, 80 people in the same room, because we needed the education system, we need the youth representative, we need the service public employment, we need the, all these stakeholders, all the level of local authorities. And we spent 4 months to try to reach a consensus, and it was totally awful. And it was very interesting to have all these people in this room because each time somebody didn't come to the meeting, it was his responsibility. All other agreed to say, if for instance the employment public service was not there, everybody said, well, we have this situation because they don't do their job. If the education was not there, all of us were agreed to say it was the fault of the education system. If the employer representative was not there, the fault to the company, private company, and so on. And so it was very important to put all these people in the same room, to close the doors, and to say, now you can't say that it's somebody else, because all of us are here. It's not a joke also, because it's like that and we made endless discussion to try to reach a consensus with the responsibility of all of them. And once we reach a consensus, we show that we need money in this kind of context. And so we were in the situation where we had to convince that it was cost effective and that we could invest in the youth. That's how we come to the idea of experimentation, to select the more cost effective solution, to convince that it's possible to improve the situation, because in a country like mine, everybody says, well, but for 20 years we put money on programs and we have no results, so there is no reason to try another program. To involve all the stakeholders, not only to find the principles, but also to implement policies. and to avoid to add new benefits or new things without increasing the level of employment and the level of qualification. If you want to add to help youth to have a better future, it's not to give them money. It could be to give them money to help them to find a job, or to give them to help them to have to reach higher qualification. That's very important. And the idea of experimentation is very useful to avoid ideological endless battles. In France, experimentation was quite new, a new concept, because we have always right. I mean, we're sure to be right, and we don't understand why we should experiment something. We should only, pass a law and then show the results, and it could be and show to the rest of the world how we were right. And so, in the mentality of French policymakers, it's very difficult to say you can experiment something and maybe you'll be wrong. It's so difficult that we had to change our constitutional law, because we have the principle of equality, which means that you're not allowed to treat differently two people or one area differently than the rest of the territory. So we have first to change the constitutional law. Once, it's a huge procedure to put it. Once we did it, we didn't use this possibility which was now opened by the constitutional law. And it's only in 2007 with you that we implemented the first experimentation to reform the minimum income to transform it into income tax credit. And the major part of the politicians were reluctant to this idea because they don't read the books of the researchers, because they think that randomization is something absolutely awful, and so on. And there was no specific financing for that. That was my first PowerPoint in my life. Usually other people do it for me, so you can't understand it. How do we organize experimentation? The first thing, after the constitutional law, we pass a law to create a fund dedicated to experimentation for young people, and we put money on it, 150 million euros. I made the same strategies on the football players, you know. When the government asked me to take the youth problem under my responsibilities, I said, the price is 150 million. And not for myself, but saying I can't do anything if we don't have any money to do it. And I put this sentence in the speech of the President Sarkozy when he appointed me. And it was funny because he didn't say the speech, he said something else. And then I have to negotiate to say that the written speech was the good one, and to get the 150 million euros that we needed. 150 million euros, it's huge for just experimental programs. It's more than the money you put on a generalized policy in general. And so it was 150 million only to design and to finance experimental programs, which is quite a huge amount. And we added private contributions. And one came from a big company called Total, which is an oil company, who made huge profits, and we asked them to put 50 million euros. And I could obtain that because I said the government will put 150 million euros, and so you can put also additional money. And we have now other private contributors, and we give them a seat saying, well, you're involved and you should be involved in the future of the youth in the policy where you have your headquarters. And we have a management commission of the fund with all the stakeholders and the ministers who have the same problem of trying to make all of them smiling. And we have a scientific committee, and Bruno will talk about his job, but it's very important to have a scientific committee. And regularly we made call for projects on specific issues, health and youth, employment and youth, education and youth. It's very precisely designed to say who will make this experimentation in this very precise framework, and sometimes only on some ideas on who want to work on this team. And we selected in 2 or 3 years 300 projects to spend this money, and we allocated 30% of the budget for evaluation. That's what we're quite popular among scientists. I can give you, before giving the floor to Bruno, some examples of the issues we tested. For instance, it's how to reduce the proportion of students who give up their studies without diploma, because you can add many educational programs. If people give up during the first year, which is quite often the case, I mean, there is no use to put more public money in that, so that's the first question we try to work in. We worked also on the impact of finances driving lessons on the insertion of job market. If you finance driving lessons, will you increase the proportion of young people who will find a job during the next year? We work on, I'm now the responsible for the young volunteer programs. If somebody at 18 or 19 will spend 1 year in a volunteer program, will it increase the probability to find a job later on? I hope so. We also address healthcare question, because if we have an health insurance, young people have to advance the money before having care, and sometimes there is one part which is out of the pocket. And the question was, if it's totally free without to advance the money, will it trigger an overconsumption of healthcare, or will it increase prevention? And it's impossible to answer to the question, which is linked to behaviors, without making an experimentation. And if we don't address this question, you'll remain with out of the pocket on people who can't have access to healthcare, even in a country like ours with great amount of health expenditures because of financial barriers. We also test the efficiency of boarding school, which is something which existed at the last century, which was suppressed, and to see if to reintroduce boarding school, will it help young people to make good studies. And also we have different programs on discrimination for young people coming from immigration, and some programs are very interesting, involving private companies, the courage to test and to measure the discrimination in their own practices, and to be an active part of the program. We have many other issues, and Bruno will show you how it works and what kind of results and of hope it raises, and I will be happy to answer to your question if you have any afterwards. Thank you very much.